Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile video. In this one I will talk about gear progression for the Mage skeleton build guide, since it is extremely popular being played right now in the league. So I'm going to talk about the gear progression and what you need to do as you're playing. So you start up with a character and you normally play with either Absolution. Some people like melee skeletons, but Absolution is better in my opinion. This will carry you all the way into red tier maps if you so wish in a fucking tabula rasa. Now, what's really good with this, with playing Bab Solution, is that depending on the pricing on Dead Reckoning, which is actually on its way down now, you can actually start with getting a 5-link Fleshcrafter if you so want to, because you can use that with the Absolution. Just don't use any lightning penetration support gem because it actually won't work that well, because Fleshcrafter will ignore resistances. However, with the Mage Skeleton build, obviously the main priority would be to get the actual Dead Reckoning Jewel. The second priority would be to get a 5-link Fleshcrafter. The 5-link Fleshcrafter is better than the Tabula Rasa. After this, there's a couple of other things that you can go for, and it all depends on how you want to progress. A 5-link Fleshcrafter with a Dead Reckoning will actually clear all of the tier 16 maps. However, the higher tier maps, the higher red tier maps, will be a bit struggling. Some bosses are really nasty, such as Burial Chambers, especially without the medium cluster jewel. So you want to make sure that your character is able to do all the content, so the next upgrades that you want to look into after getting the Dead Reckoning and the Fleshcrafter is to look into the cluster jewels. Now, you can start off with something like this, and I'm going to show you my in-game cluster jewel that I have here. This is a random 10 passive with Call to Slaughter and Renewal. Now, those two are actually really good. What's really important here is that the item level of this large cluster is 56. So if I check the pricing on a, say, a 12 passive, which actually would be better, and the item level, you can see that I can buy these for 1 Chaos Orb. If I then take away this and I take away the item level and say I want Renewal with Call to Slaughter, you can see that going for 40 Chaos. But the lower the item level it is, there are only certain notables that can roll. You can easily Alteration Craft or just scour Alk till you get these very easily on a very low item level jewel, which means that this price doesn't actually fit in here. It's very easy to do this by simply buying a high passive low item level jewel. So you can get something like an item level 40 jewel, they're 50k, sorry, 1 chaos. But as soon as you go up to like 65, which can roll another notable, they immediately start to go up in price. 75 for Vicious Spite, for example, suddenly they're going up even more, and 84 for the big dick versions, and suddenly you'll see these go for 6 exalteds. So what you do is you start with a large cluster with any amount of passes, preferably 12, with a low item level. If you're below item level 65, I believe, you can get both the Called Slaughter and Renewal still. I think it's between 50 and 65, and they cost 1 Chaos Orb. And then after that, you just alk it. It doesn't really matter what you land on. Getting some attributes is nice, Called Slaughter is nice, Renewal is nice, but again, they're not needed. You're just taking this because you want to pick up all of these extra minion damage as early as possible so that you can actually get that extra damage. Next upgrade would be the actual medium cluster. This is expensive because the main priority is to get Blessed Rebirth. Now, if you look at a Blessed Rebirth jewel, they're going for 40 chaos. However, if you want to avoid wasting nodes in this one, you can't go above 5 passives. So you can use 4 or 5. So if you take maximum 5, they're going to be a little bit more currency. Keep the cost down by buying a 6 passive one. It's okay. Just make sure you have Blessed Rebirth. For higher budget, you want to get Renewal as well, but you want to stick with Blessed Rebirth. So now that you've gotten your Dead Reckoning, your Fleshcrafter at 5-link, your large cluster, and your medium cluster, you now have a build that can do everything in the actual game with the baseline content. It can do the Conquerors as well. It should have no problems doing things like Cirrus as well. And simple fights like Elder and Shaper shouldn't be that much of a problem. Obviously, these are not going to be super smooth, but it should definitely work out with this type of gearing. However, you want to make the build do even better than this, obviously. So the next step after this would be to do other investments. And this is where it really doesn't matter where you invest, because you should already have a +1 level of skills, either minions or spells, because that costs like nothing. And you should do this at the same time as you get the Fleshcrafter. So your next upgrade, when you're going from a 5-link Fleshcrafter and going higher, you have a couple of options. You have either 6-linking your Fleshcrafter, you have either skipping that and going for a helmet, and going for a +2 wand. Those are the 3 main big things you can invest to in this state. +2 weapon is currently going for 5x, I think, 4.55 exalteds, with a trigger craft are going for 6 exalteds. So it's a bit nasty with the pricing there, and obviously you'd benefit more from having a 6-link or the helmet. So in that case, you want to look into an actual 6-link flesh crafter. And if we then look at the flesh crafter with a 6-link and how much they're going for in the market, or if you want to try and do it yourself, it would look around like this. 6.3 Exalted, I'm pretty sure that's a price fixer, so about 7.9 looks about accurate, so about 8 Exalted to get a actual 6-link chest. However, for that amount of money, you can buy a +2 level of minion gems with supported minion damage and hypothermia on a bone helmet. These are currently being destroyed on the market. Here's a +1. I would probably not actually bother this one. However, you can buy a non-bone helmet version with +2 minion damage hypothermia. That's 8 Exalted, which is the same price as the Flesh Crafter. And buying this and putting your Skelly gems in the helmet, which you want to have the white sockets, 2 of them in there. If you don't, you can switch the Pierce and Volley for added cold and hypothermia, not hypothermia, but you can switch the Volley for added cold instead. And it would still be better than running a normal 6-link. So the amount of money you buy a 6-link Flesh Crafter, you can actually stop that and just go for the helmet with the current state of the market. So always compare these two. And once you've done that, you can actually sell your 5-link Flesh Crafter because you don't need any links in your Flesh Crafter anymore. So that is one of the big upgrades when you go from low into medium budget version. This helmet is strictly designed to be for the medium budget versions. Another upgrade once you got this going would be to buy the most broken amulet in the entire game, in my opinion. It's the Ashes of the Stars Onyx Amulet. It gives you plus level of all skills and 30% quality of all skill gems. Turns out this gives you more damage than having an amulet that has +1 to skeletons. And it turns out it is also better than +1 to all level of skill gems and +1 skeletons, which is very expensive to craft in the current state of the game since they removed the level of intelligence gems. So this amulet is insanely good. And this is in the medium budget version. In a high budget version, you're going to start using alternative quality gems. And those will also get, at least the active skill gems, like Divergent Precision, for example. These things will also get 30% quality, which separates the differences between this and a very expensive rare one even further. On top of which, you also get reservation efficiency of skills, which means you can do a quick change on the reservation here. Instead of taking these two, you can just go on the right-hand side and you still have mana left over. And you don't no longer need the mana mastery, and you don't need the righteous decree to reduce the mana cost. You can also decide to keep these two and have a higher lower precision, but now we're talking about high budget. So to stick to the medium budget version, that would be the approach that you want to go for in gearing. Another big upgrade when you start going into medium budget, which I would prioritize after the helmet, is to get a shield that has life and life recovery on block. If you want to buy a more expensive one, you also want to have a chance to block spell damage on that shield. This can only exist on shields that have energy shield on them, either hybrid or pure, so keep that in mind. Other than that, you want to make sure you get your Albrun's Warpath. I did actually forget to mention these for the low budget. The boots should be the first thing you buy after you bought the Dead Reckoning Jewel, in my opinion. They're very cheap. I think they cost like 1C, or 3 chaos actually. And if you look at an 18% strength roll, they seem to be going for 3, 4, 5 chaos, so it's pretty fine. Darkness of the Throne is a big upgrade, but not really until you get decent jewels with life and minion damage, for example. So don't really think too much about the Darkness of the Throne till later, because it's just a strict damage increase. Getting your link sorted and your helmet is way more important. Having the Ashes of the Star is really big as well. And other than that, just getting rings with dexterity to help out the pressure dexterity that the amulet normally sorts for this build. You want to make sure that your rings and gloves have this sorted. And this brings me to the next upgrade, what you want to do still within the medium budget version. And that is gloves that look something like this. Gloves that have a Searing Exarch implicit with minion damage. Preferably, again, you want to have dexterity on the gloves if possible, because it alleviates a lot of pressure on your rings. But make sure that they have life and resistances, preferably essence crafted with minion damage. Gloves like these are not too expensive, but if you want to have high life and high dexterity, they're going to go for a couple of Exalteds. But this is a very, very big upgrade. And once you've gotten halfway through the upgrading a medium budget setup, I've been doing Uber Elder, I've been farming Maven a couple times, and doing the endgame pinnacle content bosses that you can do actually on the low budget version of this build. And that's basically it. My next upgrade from this point would be to move into actual high budget. Now we're talking about a big dick version of a helmet. I managed to get one with spell crit with a little bit of luck, but that's not the big upgrade you want to go for. The big one would be to move the cluster into a proper cluster with Call to Slaughter, Renewal, Feasting Fiends, or a 12 passive cluster with increased effective modifiers and Vicious Bite to start scaling actual crit. Making sure that you have 2 white sockets, which you can get from doing betrayal encounters with Varici on research. You can actually get that very easily. You can buy them on TFT as well. It costs like 20 chaos per white sockets. It's not that hard to get a hold of. And obviously the Darkness of the Throne and Rumi's concoctions were actually really expensive. They still are. So I actually held off and waited with this till I had enough currency to not really feel the impact of buying one. So don't care about that one too early. And that's basically the progression of the gear. And once we move into higher budget, that's when +2 a wand would be more and more attractive. So you kind of want to have one. And same thing with getting a proper pair of gloves, making sure that you have spell block on the shield is suddenly fundamental for the survival. And getting a proper Darkness and Throne with proper jewels is also something that's more important at that stage of the game. And the next stage after where I am right now is to start looking at the hilariously expensive upgrades. Now we're talking about Essence Crafted Helmet. We're talking about having a minion damage that is high roll with attack speed at the very least, or even influenced or slammed +2 weapons. We're talking about proper shields with a ton of resistances, with the spell block, maybe even with extra block. Corrupted versions of Alberon's, corrupted versions of Fleshcrafter, all of these super big dick versions, and they're all super expensive. I don't want to talk too much about the mirror service versions, and I'd rather keep this video short. And that basically goes through the progression of gear that you go from starting the league off to getting the Dead Reckoning and moving into getting your full low budget set sorted, and moving from there into medium set and what it can do, and then from there just going crazy with it. Last note is about simulacrum farming. On the low budget version, you should be able to do at the very least 15 waves, and as soon as you go into a medium budget version, getting to 20+ waves is not that hard. The reason I say 20+ is because sometimes you can encounter a ridiculously hard wave anywhere after level 20 of wave 20. And because of the RNG in some of those modifiers that can actually completely destroy you, you can actually go all the way to wave 26, 27, 28 even if you're lucky. But you can also get screwed over with an unfortunate mix of combination of modifiers, and therefore just get completely hitting a brick wall at wave 22 even. So 20+ at the medium budget easily, and in the mirror tier version or the higher budget version, you can even start doing the 30 waves very easily. Hope you had use of this video. Let me know in the comments below what you like of these type of videos, and I'll see if I can do that for other builds in the future as well. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay safe, keep rocking.